Hi guys, here we are again. True confession, this is my second video because the other video that I recorded, I filmed like this, and apparently that's a big no-no in the YouTube universe of YouTubing. I'm learning. Again, I'm still learning. This video is dedicated to our unit on satire. And maybe I can make this video a little bit shorter for you guys. Okay, so you're deep in this unit, right? You're digging through. You're going through our new vocab set. You're looking at the videos. I hope that was fun. I really enjoyed putting that together. And I wanted to offer in this video some of my thoughts and reflections about satire so that perhaps you wouldn't feel as alone over there as you're studying this and thinking about it. So I'm going to put this into two different baskets. Some of my reflections and thoughts, just so you know, that's River over on the couch. She's listening in. Here, I'll show you. She decided to, that's her. Oh, and these are my other friends. Yeah. There's a full house in this room today. Okay, so I've got two baskets of thoughts. The first one is like reflections on satire in general, and then reflections on Jonathan Swift and what that might have felt like reading that. So you can also think of these things as like acknowledgments I wanted to extend to you. Maybe you're thinking some of this stuff too. Let's start with the first basket. First basket of thoughts about satire in general, got my notes, is I love it. I hope you do too. Especially in American culture, satire is huge, right? I mean, think about all the content out there that's meant to be satirical and sarcastic and ironic, and there's a lot out there, and you probably have your favorites from anything from like South Park to, some of my favorites are like, I love The Office, Parks and Rec. I mean, these are great satirical pieces, believe it or not. They're not pure satire. Some of it's a bit slapstick, sometimes it's some other types of comedy, but there's definitely satirical criticism built into these or baked into these comedies. So we love our satire here in this culture. I want to acknowledge that when your teacher asks you to start analyzing satire, it can lose some of its funny. I know that. It's no longer just something that you're enjoying and like kind of savoring and maybe taking and absorbing. It becomes something that you have to openly analyze and take apart and deconstruct. And I understand. But let me offer you this other thought, which is that I have found that when I do begin to analyze satire for its actual argument, I come to appreciate the argument at the heart of it, the thing that's actually driving that comedy piece forward. And I develop a deeper respect. So I'm hoping maybe that will be some of your experience too. Something else I wanted to point out about satire is that it's one of its greatest rhetorical strengths is that it's very disarming. If you think about it, when you can get your audience, your listeners or your readers to laugh, you've kind of helped them release some tension around, say, a controversial issue of some sort, right? So, and that's very often why satire and controversy are paired, because most of the time people get stopped up and they don't want to talk about these things, or they don't want to point to things or make things worse or make waves because there's so much tension. I'm shaking my phone. I'll try not to do that. So when you're able to like crack wise about it and get people to kind of relax, then it's a good feeling. So if you think about the rhetorical triangle, which of the three does that appeal to, right? Another thing about, what else do I say about that? I should also say that kind of as we move into our second basket of reflections is that this is assuming, of course, that all satire is intended to make you laugh. Not all satire does that. Some satire is about shocking you. So I think very much in American culture, we focus on and we sort of elevate the satirical pieces that make us laugh. But as you might have experienced reading Jonathan Swift, it's really hard to laugh about his proposal, right? It's so absurd, and it's also so well packaged. It can kind of make you stumble. So now I'm going to go ahead and segue into my next basket of thoughts about Jonathan Swift himself and his piece, A Modest Proposal. A couple of things I want to acknowledge. It's tough to read. I still, to this day, do not know why my 7th grade language arts teacher had a bunch of 13-year-olds read that with no context clue. It's like there was nothing. It was just like, go home and read that. And I did, and I was really confused because I was young and I was 13, and I didn't understand if my teacher was saying that we should eat the babies. It's all very funny now, but not in the moment. But one of the things I was also stumbling over was the language, because it's English, but it's not English of our era. It's not modern vernacular. In fact, there's a lot of colloquialisms from his time and his age that would have made sense to his audience. And he's also kind of ramping up his English, trying to make it sound more polished because it's part of his rhetorical device, right? One of his strategies, I should say, to sound more convincing and professional, which is all bogus because this is not what he really wants. So it's part of what he's doing to make his satire complete. I also want to say satire, much like the language that it's expressed in, is very much culturally specific. So is the content or the ideas, because satire is very much of its time. So let's think about this. Any of the stuff that you're watching right now that might be comedic in nature, satirical in nature, that's about current events, the pandemic, the election, all the stuff that's going on in our culture right now, which is a ton of stuff. There's probably creators out there that are trying to make us laugh and think about it, right? If you took one episode of South Park at this time, or one episode of whatever it might be that's sort of funny on Comedy Central, you know, Trevor Noah, The Daily Show, whatever late night host that you like, and you dropped it back in the past, just like a year ago, people would be lost. Not just because things had happened and we wouldn't believe it, but satire can't exist without a current moment in time. It's directly connected to current events. In the same way you can't move forward in time, it's really tough to take a piece of satire and move it 20 years forward and hope people keep laughing, because we may not be in that space anymore. That may not be the issue anymore, and people may not be connected to those events. I mean, if someone tried to make a joke about Iran-Contra right now, we'd be like, yeah, I studied that in my history class in high school, right? But when it's current and it's affecting us in this moment, that's the moment that satire blooms. So that could be another reason why it's hard to read Jonathan Swift. It was written centuries before, right? It's sort of, there's still some stuff going on between Britain and Ireland these days, but it's not the same. Things have moved, progressed through time. Things have changed. So it's not the same thing. Sorry, I'm going to move my hand here. So I wanted to acknowledge that the language and the history that surrounds it may make you feel a little disconnected from what he's trying to do. Regardless of that, I will say this. Swift's his contemporary audience at the time, so in 1729, when Homeboy wrote this, and it got printed and pushed out into the public eye, and people were reading his little pamphlet, some people legit thought that his proposal was a good idea. And to me, I think this is really funny, because it's more funny. Like, it makes the funny more funny. To a tipping point, it's almost kind of tragic. And I think this is sort of, again, part of going back to this first basket observation about satire, is that it can really reveal us to ourselves. Jonathan Swift was trying to point out how horribly the British treated the Irish, how how despicable and inhumane that was. And yet there were people who read his absurd proposal and were like, yeah, you know, that would solve some problems. And maybe they were taken in by his, he didn't break character, right? When he did this, he did it, he wrote this with a straight face. So maybe they just like believed him, but it doesn't really compute, right? So the only thing that bridges that gap in people's minds is their own prejudices and bias against the Irish people. And you'll see some of that stuff even happen today, where people don't realize that they're being mocked or ridiculed because people think that satire is something that is just pure absurdism. But usually the best satire is more of an imitation that just goes half an inch past where people are already at and takes something to a more illogical or absurd conclusion, but they don't recognize it because they're still in it. It's really interesting stuff. What else can I say about satire? I feel like this collection of thoughts and observations is sort of random, and I wanted to be able to give you guys more clarity on this. So I'm hoping this video helps. If it doesn't, and you have more questions or you have observations, please, please, please share them in the Q&A cafe discussion or any of the discussions that are up and coming connected to these units. I hope that you're enjoying them. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I got. And if you guys decide that you want, anyone out there, if you guys decide that you want a Zoom class about this, I would love to schedule one. It's up to you though. I'm still kind of waiting on requests. I'm gonna let River sign us off. She super into satire herself, don't you? What's your favorite, girl? What do you like the best? What's your favorite movie? Funny movie? Okay. She's thinking about it. So I hope you guys have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Bye.